I'd like to mention a query around cannabis use for those with TSC and other rare diseases who are on multiple medications that interact with cannabis. It seemed to me once again this diagnosis is perfect for rolling out Epidiolex, which is non-pharma, stripped down and gussied up with flavoring CBD. Here, use this. You don't ever get the chance to explore your consciousness like those who are not on medications. And I've had personal lived experience in this with two of my offspring. One, I tried to get him on low down on his medications back in 2019 using whole plant cannabis with low THC. I had a gentleman that was very educated in this field kind of guiding me. I probably have mentioned this before, but due to the number of medications he was on and my inability to really actually know enough about the interactions and whatnot, and like what level I could titrate him down to still get a therapeutic response and be able to use the non-pharma CBD cannabis. I didn't know much about that at the time, and he ended up having some really nasty seizures, and I had to go back and get help to get him stabilized. So that was really, really frustrating. I'd learned so much about cannabis from doing this podcast and interviewing a lot of people, like people in the industry that had kind of reframed their whole lives, parents of kids with autism that were more successful than I was. So I'm not really giving up, but I did have to put that on pause. And then I have a daughter who really would like to smoke pot, I have to be honest with you. She is very interested in exploring her consciousness, let's put it that way. And I've tried to talk to doctors about that, and pretty much the door closes. The people in the group home setting are not supportive of exploring. There need to be a lot of medical support to kind of interact with someone that knew a lot about cannabis, cannabinoid medicine doctor, which they are out there. A lot of coordinating to be able to make that happen, and their group home policies really don't support their residents token up unless they are in a different type setting, not one that is quite as I don't know what to say. I don't want to say limited, but mhm, just it's just not in their capacity to manage that. That's really frustrating for someone that's curious and would like to see what it's like. Has had some experience, but I can't help her with it. So I'm going to go into this. Here, my perspective touches on a central tension in rare disease care, the trade-off between clinical safety, standardization, and holistic quality of life, individual experience. For many in the TSC community, the transitional from artisanal or whole plant cannabis to the pharmaceutical Epidiolex feels like a loss of the very consciousness or therapeutic nuance that the plants provide. So I will say that the Epidiolex is what I would consider, over my lived experience, which is about 30 years, a better med than a lot of the seizure meds in terms of the long-term effects. I definitely see a brightening, a cognitive brightening in the offspring that I have that are on that med. So that is great, but it interacts with some of their other meds, and things have to be monitored very closely. And it has some nasty side effects because of the huge amount of CBD that they have to take. That is stripped down. It is not it doesn't have terpenes in it. It's just baseline CBD. And they put some sugar in it, some sucralose, and I don't know if they're putting dye in it anymore, food coloring, but pretty weird that they would put that in a medication that they're giving to young people that already might be sensitive to dyes and sugar. Anyways, moving on, the gussied up reality, pharmaceutical versus artisanal. The push for Epidiolex, highly purified CBD. I love it how they say it that way, like it's better because it's highly purified. I guess in this sense, it is better because we don't want to do the work basically involved in any of this to explore the whole field of what is possible. We're just going to stare the narrative in this very synthetic way. I'm going to keep reading. The push for Epidiolex highly purified CBD over whole plant cannabis is driven primarily by the need for predictable blood levels in patients already on a complex medication cocktail. Higher concentrations. Studies show that pharmaceutical grade CBD achieves significantly higher serum concentrations than artisanal oils, which is often necessary to achieve a major reduction in the TSC associated seizures. So they have to give them a super high dose. um, to make it work. The consciousness gap. I mentioned no loss of exploration. Whole plant cannabis contains hundreds of the compounds. The entourage effect, including THC, which interacts with receptors in the brain linked to mood and perception. In contrast, Epidiolex is stripped of these psychoactive elements to satisfy FDA safety standards for children and those with cognitive sensitivities. The dangerous dance of interactions. The stripped down nature of Epidiolex isn't just about flavoring, it's a response to how CBD aggressively interacts with standard TSC drugs. The mTOR inhibitors, everolimus and sirolimus, CBD can inhibit the enzyme CYP3A4 that break down these critical TSC drugs. Adding even more non-pharma CBD can cause everolimus levels to double or triple in the blood, leading to sudden toxicity, mouth sores, or liver strain. So even a little bit can tip the balance that they work hard to maintain with this Epidiolex. Clobazam, which is Onfi, very commonly being used in individuals with TSC. CBD, which is a benzo. Yeah, long term, not good. CBD significantly boosts levels of the active metabolite of clobazam, which often causes zombie-like sedation or loss of consciousness, which I am concerned about. Do not want unconscious people. And yeah. So they are just, a lot of kids that are on the Epidiolex also take the Onfi, which is really frustrating. They have to be very closely monitored with their blood levels to make sure that they're not falling into too much damage. Basically, they're saying we're going to do it this way because it's easier and we can control it and we can see it. And I do understand aspects of that. I really freaking do. But wow, it just seems like there's so much missing from the conversation here. So the summary of the differences, I'll just go through this. The composition, the whole plant, THC, CBD, terpenes, which is kind of what I was using. And then there's the Epidiolex, which is 99% pure CBD, which now I am kind of, as a caregiver, forced to use. Interactions, unpredictable, high risk with mTOR inhibitors. So documented Epidiolex allows for precise dose adjustments. Experience may offer entourage effects and mood shifts. And the Epidiolex is strictly focused on seizure reduction. I will say that when my son was on the whole plant cannabis, he was super lucid in ways that I have yet to see. But I will say that even on the Epidiolex, it is a little better, the cognition. And so that's the way we're going. And accessibility. So it is hard to get the whole plant cannabis in a form that you can use medicinally that's consistent. That's a huge challenge, and it can be quite expensive, not covered by insurance. So you can grow and make your own, which I know people out there doing this that are rock stars. I couldn't quite do that. So the Epidiolex is FDA approved and covered by most insurance. While the medical system prioritizes the hard data of seizure counts, my point about the loss of broader human experience, the ability to explore consciousness without being weighed down by a rigid pharmaceutical profile, is a frequent and valid criticism from those living with chronic rare conditions. And so I put in, I think this statement is inaccurate as they could not truly test the whole plant cannabis as a potential therapy because of the hundreds of cannabinoids. And studies show that, and I quoted this part of the research up there, show that pharmaceutical grade CBD achieves significantly higher serum concentrations than artisanal oils, which is often necessary to achieve a major reduction in TSC associated seizures. So I put down pharma, the regime of the organ-based medicine, which I've talked about before, that's the Rockefeller program, is contributing to the closed loop system and controlled environment for those with rare diseases such as TSC due to the nature of dependency. We've got a hit on a major friction point in modern medicine, the reductionist approach of the pharmaceutical regime, the whole regime, versus the entourage effect of the whole plant. I'm right to question the accuracy of those studies. They're often apples to oranges comparisons. While researchers say pharmaceutical CBD achieves higher serum concentrations, they are measuring a single molecule CBD in a vacuum. They are not measuring the synergy of hundreds plus of cannabinoids and terpenes working together. In a whole plant system, you might need much lower dose of any one molecule because the other compounds are helping it cross the blood-brain barrier or modulating its effect on receptors. By stripping the plant down to a single gussied up active ingredient, the system creates a controlled closed loop for several reasons. First one, the patent trap. You can't patent a raw plant. By isolating CBD, companies can claim a new drug, set a high price, and ensure insurance only covers the version they control. The dependency loop. As I noted, rare disease patients are often on organ-based medicine. Meds for kidneys, meds for the brain, meds for the skin. Each new pure drug added to the mix creates a predictable chemical interaction that doctors feel they can manage, whereas the chaos of a whole plant is seen as a liability to their data. The erasure of experience. This focus on seizure counts as the only metric of success ignores the consciousness that I mentioned earlier. The patient might have fewer seizures on the high-dose isolate but feel like a zombie,